On this video, we're going to be looking at different types of merger, why they take place, and some of the problems you might get with them. The first type of merger is a horizontal merge. That's when you are merging basically with one of your rivals. You're in the same industry and at the same production stage. So, for example, a lot of sixth form colleges are merging together at the moment. A vertical merge is again when you're in the same industry but you're at different stages of production. A backwards vertical merge is where you merge with a firm at the previous stage. So, for example, a college could merge with, I don't know, a secondary school. Forwards vertical merging is where you merge with the next stage of production. This would be the unlikely scenario of a college taking over a university. A conglomerate merge is where you're merging with a different industry. So a good example of a conglomerate firm there is Disney. There's lots of links between the various arms of Disney, but they are looking at very different things. So, for example, a theme park is very different to a film or a cartoon. And there it is with some reasonable examples. So we've got our horizontal merge, Virgin Media, if they merge with BT Media, Lidl and Morrison's. Vertical, so you've got coffee growers being bought up by a transport firm who could then buy up a retailer, or an oil refinery going backwards into drilling or forwards into retail, or a home builder linking with an estate agents. So why do it? Well, what you're looking for is synergy. As you know, 2 + 2 = 5, not 4, because at the end of the day, you want the merged firm to be worth more than the individual firms, and that is called synergy. So imagine you're listening to 40 minutes of music, and you've got, say, 5 or 6 minutes of just a drummer, then 5 or 6 minutes of just a lead guitarist, 5 or 6 minutes of just a rhythm guitarist, 5 or 6 minutes of just a singer singing by themselves. Well, you'd be pretty bored at the end of that, because with a band, the whole is more than the sum of the parts. So you could happily listen to a band for a long time, but not the individual components of it. There are 2 types of synergies. Revenue synergies are where the combined firm finishes up with more revenues than the individual firms. So, for example, if firm A had 25 billion revenue, firm B had 10 billion revenue, and the combined firm has 40 billion of revenue, then you've got revenue synergies. Cost synergies are where the combined firm has fewer lower costs than the individual firms. So, for example, if firm A has 20 billion of costs, firm B has 8 billion of costs. If you can get that down to 26 billion, then you've managed to achieve 2 billion of cost synergies. Cost synergies are one of the biggest drivers behind sixth form colleges merging, because they reckon they can combine things like the payroll function, the personnel functions, the finance functions. You can get rid of one of the principals, you can get rid of one of the heads of department who's serving the 2 colleges. So you're going to be saving money, hopefully. One thing that I do like to look for in questions is whether a firm could potentially use the other firm's distribution network and achieve revenue synergies that way. So, for example, when Costa were bought out by Coca-Cola, fantastic distribution network in China. Costa, not well known in China, so Coca-Cola were hoping they could sell a lot more Costa coffee through their distribution network that they already have. They tried a similar thing with Innocent Drinks when they bought them up. With a vertical merge, often you are looking for cost synergies because hopefully you're going to get a secure supplier because you actually own the supplier, or a secure outlet. And of course, you're cutting out the middleman, so you should be able to make cost savings that way. With a conglomerate or certain types of horizontal merge, you could be trying to gain a foothold in the market. So if, for example, you take over a competitor in another country, that could be a horizontal merge, but you might be dipping your toe into the country that you just moved into. Or alternatively, with a conglomerate merge, by definition, you're moving into a new market. You could want to buy up the expertise in the other firm. Really good example of that. Facebook's first really big takeover was when they took over Instagram. It cost them $1 billion. Up to that point, Instagram had not made even $1 in revenue. And the reason why they did that is they wanted to get their hands on 13 people who basically knew their market reasonably well. And it was a bit of a gamble, and it paid off by Zuckerberg. And the final three things, well, brand recognition could be a reason to merge. It could just be one of your corporate objectives. And of course, you can always discuss Ansoff's matrix when looking at a merge or takeover. Unfortunately, with takeovers, more often than not, 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 5, it actually equals 3. Shareholder value is destroyed, so the combined company is worth less than the individual companies. One of the reasons for that is the takeover process itself is likely to mean that you're spending more than the company actually is worth. So, for example, even if it's a friendly takeover, you are going to have to offer the other shareholders a premium to sell to you. So you're going to be actually offering more than the company is worth. With a hostile takeover, it's going to be even worse because you're going to have bids, counter bids, white knights, all of which are going to drive the price up. And as soon as there is a takeover or even a takeover announcement, immediately shareholders know that the price of shares is going to rise. And so they will buy up shares, which will cause, of course, the price to rise. So at the end of the day, you could be paying substantially more than that firm was originally worth. And you've got to get that back in order to get that 2 plus 2 equals 5 scenario. And often you don't. Of course, whether the bid is successful or not, you would have had to have done some decent research into that company prior to making that bid to make sure that it's good for you. Well, you might jump in the dark, but that would normally be a pretty stupid move. So that is also going to cost you money. You do have to engage in what's called due diligence if to increase your chances of success. And whether you've done your research right or not, often the decision is not in your hands. So the competition authorities will probably investigate any large merger, and they might restrict it. They might say force you to sell off stores or whatever to try to stop you getting a monopoly, or they might just say no. So when Sainsbury's wanted to merge with Asda, both sides were happy, but the competition authorities weren't, and so that didn't take place. So they spent all that money to have absolutely no impact whatsoever. So once you've succeeded in merging, then you've got to bring the two firms together, and that is going to be expensive and might not work. You've probably got to bring your systems into place with each other. The culture of the two firms, the way that they do things, might be completely different and incompatible with each other, and that is frequently the reason why mergers fail. You've got to train up staff in the new systems. You might have to relocate, and there are likely to be redundancies. Remember, I talked about cost synergies. That is often people getting sacked, but before people get sacked, you've got to pay them a bit of redundancy money. So when Morrisons merged with Safeways, they took a £300 million hit. About 150 million of that was down to the actual cost of the merge itself. Most of the rest was due to integration and fighting off Tesco, who as soon as they saw the two firms were merging, started a price war against Morrisons because they knew that Morrisons were weak. And of course, financing the merger or takeover will have implications. If you go via equity, then you're going to be subject to share dilution. If you raise loan or debt capital to finance the merger, then you've got to pay the interest on the loan, and of course your gearing is likely to rise. As for the share value itself, well, normally during the actual process, share values rise because shareholders are often optimistic. Afterwards, it depends. If 2 plus 2 equals 5, it'll rise. If 2 plus 2 equals 3, it won't, it'll fall. And some of the general problems, well, we've already talked about culture clashes, we've already talked about gearing. Shareholders are often impatient, and when two firms merge, it might take years for the two firms to actually come up with an efficient system, but shareholders often want their money now. They're often short-termist rather than long-termist. It might create conflicting messages to customers. So when Innocent Drinks was taken over by Coca-Cola, their two reputations are very different. A fizzy cola company, not known for being particularly moral, taking over and merging. It was a friendly merge, taking over a company that is known for moral standards, and there was the danger that Innocent were going to lose their customers. The way Coke got out of that was basically they didn't particularly interfere with the Innocent management. Obviously, as I've said, you'll often get cost synergies by sacking workers. Well, that isn't going to make workers very happy, and unhappy workers and uncertain workers may well cause a problem. Of course, as the firm gets bigger, it's like a bolted on thing, and you might not be able to control the new enterprise in the way that you could control the old one, and it will put a strain on resources. And that's all that I want to say on this aspect of mergers and takeovers.